Welcome to 3DLANES number 68. This time we are talking about the Deadbeat seconds complication in mechanical watches. And this one is dedicated to the guys from the Wristology podcast because they mentioned that, well, they have mentioned that that's their um, favorite complication. So we're going to be talking about it here today. This one I've had it for a while, but I put it aside mainly because I wanted to know a little more before getting into it. I didn't have all the information I wanted, but the Deadbeat second complication, um, it started in or around 1675, and there was this fella, an English astronomer and mathematician, not a mathematician, but a mathematician, Richard Towneley. I think I'm saying his last name right, but he invented the deadbeat escapement for use in regulator clocks at the Greenwich Observatory. So his main goal was to eliminate the recoil that it was present in the earlier anchor escapements from watches at that time. And one thing that his his thought was, this whole recoil that happens within the movement makes the watches less reliable, less precise. And his benefit with the new movement was to allow the seconds hands to advance in precise and very discrete steps rather than having a continuous motion like the sweeping hands that we have now. But this movement was refined later by a British clockmaker, George Graham, and this was around 1715. So like 35, 40 years later, he improved upon the original designs from Towneley and incorporated into his precision regulator clocks. And his refinements were so significant in the movement that the deadbeat escapement became known as the Graham escapement. Although historically, credit rightfully belongs to Mr. Townley. So, just credit to Mr. Townley over here, where credit's due. I mean, Graham also had a huge influence in it, so we're not going to deny that. But the early deadbeat mechanism served a crucial purpose in astronomical and scientific applications. So the precision of clocks equipped with the Graham's pendulum and deadbeat escapement, uh, the improvement was so big that they became known as regulators actually, and the standard for accurate timekeeping in observatories, post offices, and railway stations. And to make these big movements into a wristwatch, the transition was big because you had to um, basically put the whole movement through a miniaturization process, and this was really really complex at the time. I can only imagine. They don't have the machines that we have today, and even with the machines today, I don't believe it's an easy feat. But there were three major manufacturers that introduced the deadbeat second wristwatches in 1954. So this is quite some time later, kind of like what, 200 years later. So the Rolex TrueBeat reference 6556, and he had a caliber of the caliber 1040. It was a modified version of the proven caliber 1030, and this was specifically engineered for the deadbeat complication. This was a 34 millimeter oyster case watch, and he had a sophisticated star and flirt mechanism. So there's different mechanisms for the deadbeat. This one featured a specific star and flirt, And this converted the 4 hertz key number right here, 4 hertz balance wheel frequency into a precise 1 second advances of the central seconds hand. The second watch is the Omega Synchrobeat. This was powered by the caliber 372, and it was a chronometer certified movement, and it was initially produced in around 1,000 pieces for the US market. But technical challenges came with the mechanism, and it led to production stoppage and recalls. And it's estimated that only 17 examples survived. So if you get to see one of these, you are seeing something really, really rare. So if you get that lucky, be mindful of that. Other brands that use some Deadbeat calibers were Doxa and other brands at a time. But yeah, these use calibers 115 or 116 from Chissard, and these were widely distributed through other manufacturers, almost also like Zenith. Zenith also had a Deadbeat watch at the time. But again, there's 3 ways to get this Deadbeat complication to work. One of them is the star and flirt mechanism, and supposedly is the most common method, and it features a star-shaped wheel, and it's attached to the escape wheel. And after 8 beats of the escapement, the star rotates to release a spring-loaded lever called a flirt. And then this advances the second hand in one discrete step, kind of like the quartz watches. Secondary escapement is another way to do it. This is a more complex implementation, and it uses a 4-armed anchor with jewel pallets. This is driven by a 4th wheel of the going train. This approach uses, or is used by makers like Peterman Bedot. I don't know if I'm saying that name correctly. Debatoon uses this type of escapement also, and it provides a more precise control over the jumping action. Then 1 second remontoire, the most sophisticated approach supposedly, and employs an intermediate spring mechanism that stores and releases energy in precise 1 second intervals. This ensures the consistent force delivery regardless of mainspring tension. And now we can move to why this deadbeat doesn't happen anymore, and a few questions a question that you may have, at the moment. If this deadbeat was helping the watch to be more precise, why don't we use it anymore, right? Like, that was the whole thing, right? Like, it was more precise then. How come is it not precise now? Are the movements today more precise? Do we not need it? What is the deal, right? So the deadbeat basically did have benefits, but the benefits became obsolete under some conditions. So the deadbeat was created. Let's focus on why it was created and move to why it became obsolete after that. So the deadbeat escapement was not a luxury or artistic endeavor for these people, right? It was a need, and it solved a real engineering problem, and it was the accuracy of the clocks in the 17th century. So the anchor that created the recoil escapement, used before it had a critical flaw, and every time the escape wheel was locked by the pallet, it recoiled slightly backward, and this disturbed the pendulum's isochronism, which is called, and it's the ability to swing at perfectly consistent intervals. So this recoil introduced timing errors and put mechanical stress on the entire gear train. And Mr. Graham over here in 1715, his deadbeat escapement eliminated that recoil completely by redesigning the pallet faces to be curved and concentric with a pendulum pivot. So the escape wheel simply stopped dead rather than going back. So the impact on accuracy was very, very dramatic. What was the reason that these were adapted to wristwatches in 1954, you may ask? So when the complication moved to wristwatches, the original accuracy benefit disappeared because wristwatches use a balance wheel running at 3 to 4 hertz, not a pendulum, right? So the big clocks use the big old pendulum that you see in like movies nowadays, because these clocks are rare. So the engineers replaced that benefit with a different practical one, the discrete jumping seconds hand. So the wristwatch Deadbeat was built specifically for professionals who needed to read a whole second interval precisely, like doctors, right? So timing a patient's pulse rate, that's what they need it for. The jumping hand pauses on each second mark, and it makes it easy for people to count beats without the having to keep checking the sweeping hands and keeping closer track to that, right? Because when you see the hand jump, it's easier to check. Scientists and engineers also used it to synchronize watches to a reference time. Discrete second jump makes it immediately obvious if two timepieces are out of sync. So the sweeping hand makes it a little more difficult. It's not that much more difficult, but it makes it easier with the jumping hand. And precision timing events, continuously sweeping hand force the reader to estimate position between tick marks, and that's not ideal. A jumping hand eliminates that interpolation error entirely, right? So why did it decline, right? Why did these um, watches decline? And uh, the market decline basically happened because of the complexity of service. These movements were way more complex than what we have nowadays. And many Rolex True Beat movements, for example, were converted back to conventional sweep seconds during routine service. So they say don't send back to your Rolex to Rolex because they're gonna polish it, and they're gonna bring it back to new aesthetics, at least, or like a new watch. And some people don't like that. Some people like to have the scratches and all that stuff. Some other people don't, right? But if you're okay with having them do all that, then just send it back to Rolex. But situations like this would happen, right, where they would change the movement, so it was not a true beat anymore, and the appeal of that watch is gone after that. But this didn't happen just because Rolex did just they wanted to do that. No, it's because replacement parts became unavailable, so there was no way to fix them. That's a huge issue. Consumer confusion came after, like in the 1970s, right, when the quartz technology became more prominent, and there was a shift in market perception. What had been once a symbol of mechanical precision became, visually like a joke, because it's like quartz. It's probably a quartz watch. It wasn't, right? It was a mechanical watch with a legit complication, but people would see it as a quartz, and the value, they would just not value what it was. So yeah, that was the market perception. Limited market appeal again. The original target market of medical professionals proved insufficient to sustain production, and a lot of doctors, they just thought, the sweeping hand, it's fine. I don't need the seconds anymore, and they were okay with what we had at the time. Manufacturing cost versus demand, the complex manufacturing requirements of these watches, and the limited market acceptance made the Deadbeat not economically viable for mass production, and it disappeared. As simple as that. Now, if we analyze, if we take one of these three watches, right, we would have to analyze the Rolex True Beat. Why? Because it's technically is the most famous one, the one that has been more iterations of, or more, not iterations. There's more units out in the market of this watch than any other watch, right? Like the Omega, we say was probably 17 survived, so we don't know. So if we analyze the True Beat, right? So product, What is the True Beat? The True Beat represented a bold innovation in mechanical watchmaking. And the core product was a 34 millimeter automatic wristwatch and feature a revolutionary Deadbeat seconds complication powered by the specially developed caliber 1040. Rolex, as usual, positioned this as a professional tool watch and emphasized the utility for medical professionals and instead of having it as a luxury status. But yeah, it was cost chronometer certified and represented Rolex first attempt into into specialist complications. And this predated their famous tool watch trilogy of the Sub, the GMT Master, and the Explorer. So it was kind of like the very first thing that they did. The pricing strategy, as usual, employed premium pricing, consistent with their luxury brand positioning. And despite marketing the TrueBeat as a professional tool, it was priced as a luxury item. And contemporary estimates suggest the watch retail for approximately $200 to $300 at the time 1954, which is the equivalent of $2,000 to $3,000 today. This pricing basically reflected the significant development, cost, and manufacturing complexity, and it maintained Rolex premium brand image. I mean, obviously, we know that there's no Rolex watch that costs that nowadays. New, right? We're talking about new. The high price point for a specialized tool created a value perception challenge, and potential buyers really question whether the professional utility justify the premium cost over, any other timepiece. So the questions began. The distribution, we know Rolex leveraged the existing network of authorized dealers worldwide and focused distribution through high-end jewelry stores and watch boutiques. The limited production run of an estimated few thousand pieces over the 5 years created selective availability, maintaining the brand's exclusivity and limiting market penetration. Sorry. The promotion, the approach targeted doctors, healthcare workers, and medical professionals as the primary target. Marketing messages emphasize the watch utility for accurate pulse measurement and medical timing applications. Communication likely occurred through, I don't know, medical trade publications and professional associations, I'm assuming, rather than traditional luxury watch marketing channels like today. But the this is interesting. The revival and collector interest nowadays, it's kind of high. There's modern independent watchmakers that have revived the interest in the Deadbeat second complication, and they're viewed as ultimate expressions of mechanical sophistication. Brands that we have like Garrick, Habring, Peterman Bedot, and Langa, they have created contemporary interpretations of this type of watches, and usually asking prices are 50K USD or more. So the original Rolex TrueBeat now, um, actually not now. In 2008, it would have cost you what, like $10,000, the TrueBeat in 2008. But nowadays, you can find it maybe for like 30K, 35K. Yeah. Uh, the price and collectability of these watches has increased quite a bit. So now, are these watches an investment? I don't know. I don't like speculating like that, and that's something that I would like to touch on somewhere else. But yeah, at this prices, these watches don't become, I don't know, enjoyable to wear out and about. They become something else, right? They become maybe an asset. And it was an innovation, this type of watch for sure, but it was by necessity, and it was technically ambitious, but the the Deadbeat was too complex to keep alive, and now with the frequency that we see current watches going, the 3 and 4 hertz sweep on the current watches, it's pretty much optimal for current watches. So the frequency is small enough for a wristwatch and is fast enough to resist shocks and efficient enough to have to preserve power reserve. So adding a Deadbeat on top of that, it would not add anything. At least not with the current movements that we have. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's the reality of it. And yeah, I think that's where we leave it. By the way, we have a I have a Substack now, and I think it's not gonna be a repeat of anything that you see on the website or on the podcast. This everything that I put out is free, right? So this is just an exercise for my head, my mind, and but I don't want to mix everything in one spot. So if you're interested, the Substack's gonna be on the website. It's not there yet, but the link will be there eventually. I can leave it on the show notes or something. But yeah, we're starting a Substack. Don't expect posts as often as other people, but at least twice a month, that Substack's gonna be knocking on your door. Uh, Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I will see you next time.